Number 1. Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar was one of the most powerful criminals in history. By the late 1980s, he was the head of the Medellin cartel in Colombia, and his money, weapons, and influence made him feared across the world. But what makes his prison story so unbelievable is that in 1991, Escobar surrendered to Colombian authorities under a special deal. Instead of being sent to a normal prison, he was held in a prison called La Catedral. But La Catedral was not like an ordinary prison. It was built to his liking, with far more comfort, space, and freedom than a normal inmate would ever get. Even while locked up, Escobar still had power. And in July 1992, when the government tried to move him to a more secure prison, he escaped. Most prisoners are controlled by the system. Pablo Escobar was powerful enough to bend the system around himself. Number 2. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. Joaquín Guzmán, better known as El Chapo, was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. He became feared because of violence, money, power, and influence. But his prison escapes made him even more infamous. He escaped from prison more than once. His most famous escape happened in 2015 when he fled through a tunnel connected directly to his prison cell. In 2019, he was sentenced in the United States to life in prison, plus 30 years. The court also ordered him to forfeit $12.6 billion. Most prisoners lose their power when they go behind bars. El Chapo became feared because people believed his influence could still reach beyond the prison walls. Number 3. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez became one of the most feared criminals in American history. In 1984 and 1985, he carried out a series of murders, burglaries, and attacks in California. He became known as the Night Stalker. What made him so terrifying was how random his crimes felt. His attacks happened in people's homes, at night, in ordinary neighborhoods. People locked their windows, left their lights on, and feared that anyone could be next. In 1989, Ramirez was convicted and sentenced to death. He died in prison in 2013. Richard Ramirez was feared because he made people feel unsafe in the one place they were supposed to feel protected, their own home. Number 4. Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber, was not feared because of prison fights or physical violence inside a cell. He was feared because of his intelligence. His bombing campaign began in 1978 and continued for nearly 17 years. During that time, his bombs killed 3 people and injured 23 others. For years, nobody knew exactly who he was. He lived alone in a remote cabin in Montana and carefully planned his attacks. On April 3, 1996, he was arrested by the FBI. He was later sentenced to life in prison. Kaczynski's story is terrifying because it shows how much damage one isolated person can cause with planning, patience, and intelligence. He was not the loudest person on this list, but he was one of the most calculated. Number 5. Robert Maudsley. Robert Maudsley is one of Britain's most disturbing prisoners. He was first imprisoned after killing a man in 1974, but his reputation became even darker after he killed again while already in custody. Maudsley was later convicted of killing multiple people, including prisoners. Because of his violence inside secure institutions, he became known as a prisoner who had to be kept away from almost everyone. Over time, newspapers gave him extreme nicknames, and some stories about him became exaggerated. But the real facts are still disturbing enough. He was feared because the prison system itself had to treat him as a special risk. Number 6. Richard Matt. Richard Matt was serving 25 years to life for murder when he became part of one of the most famous prison escapes in modern American history. On June 6, 2015, Matt and another prisoner, David Sweat, escaped from Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. This was not a simple escape. They cut through cell walls, moved through hidden utility areas, used a steam pipe, and escaped through the prison's sewer system. The escape triggered a huge manhunt. For weeks, nearby communities were on edge. People locked their doors while police searched forests, cabins, and roads. Matt was eventually shot and killed by authorities on June 26, 2015. Richard Matt was feared because he showed that even a maximum security prison could be beaten. Number 7. Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson, now known as Charles Salvador, was first jailed in 1974 for armed robbery. At first, his sentence was only 7 years, but inside prison, his behavior made his name infamous. Over the years, he became known for violent incidents, attacks, and hostage-taking. But inside prison, his behavior made his name infamous. Over the years, he became known for violent incidents, attacks, and hostage-taking. His sentence was eventually increased to life. In 2023, he lost a parole bid after the parole board decided he was still not suitable for release. Bronson did not become feared because of one single crime. He became feared because his reputation grew inside the prison system. For prison staff, the problem was simple. He was unpredictable. Number 8. Robert Stroud. Robert Stroud was born in 1890 and became one of America's most notorious federal prisoners. In 1909, he was convicted of manslaughter, but his reputation became even darker in 1916 when he killed a prison guard at Leavenworth Penitentiary. He was sentenced to death, but that sentence was later changed to life in prison. Stroud became famous as the Birdman of Alcatraz because he studied birds while locked up. But when he was moved to Alcatraz in 1942, he was not even allowed to keep birds there. So the nickname made him sound almost harmless. But the reality was very different. He spent decades in prison and died in custody in 1963. Robert Stroud was feared because he proved that even behind bars, he was still dangerous.